My fiancé said he'd marry me if nothing better came along, so I let him watch something better walk in. My fiancé told me to my face, "I'll marry you if nothing better comes along." We were 6 months away from the wedding, sitting on the couch in matching pajamas I bought us after a full day of choosing floral arrangements and arguing over the seating chart. I just asked if we could maybe reduce the guest list to keep costs down. He wanted to invite his college friends, including people he hadn't spoken to in years, and he rolled his eyes, said I was being dramatic, then looked at me, dead serious, and said that line. "You're fine, you're stable. If nothing better comes along, you'll do." No joke, no follow-up laugh, just straight back to watching Netflix like he hadn't just insulted me in a way I'd never forget. It was like something snapped inside me. Not a dramatic scream, not crying, something colder, cleaner, deadlier. I nodded slowly, stood up, went to the kitchen, stared at the drawer where I kept our wedding planning folder, and that's when it hit me. I wasn't devastated. I was disgusted. I had been feeding this man, financing half this wedding, letting him get away with his honesty that was just cruelty with good lighting. 3 years of brushing off his comments when he told me I should do more squats, or when he called me decent looking if the light hits right. When he joked with his friends that I was practical, like I was a used car he picked because it had good mileage. And now? He thought I would stick around while he scanned the room for upgrades. So I made a decision. Right there in the kitchen, I'd let him go through with the wedding. But not for the reason he thought, because if he wanted to play games, I'd show him what it looks like to lose everything. The next morning, I smiled, kissed his forehead, made him coffee. He looked suspicious, probably because I wasn't arguing anymore. "Feeling better?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "You were right. I think I was just overthinking everything." He relaxed, smirked. "See, that's why we work. You just need to chill more." And that's when I knew this wasn't going to be revenge. This was going to be surgical. I called my best friend Mia, told her everything. She nearly dropped her phone. "You're canceling the wedding, right?" she asked. I said, "No, not yet." There was silence on the other end. Then slowly, "Oh, you're going there." Yes, I was going there, because he didn't just hurt me, he humiliated me, and I was going to return the favor. First step, I stopped paying for anything. Quietly, no confrontations, just cut off my half of the wedding payments and let the overdue notices pile up. When he asked, I blamed delays, lost emails, vendors not responding. He believed it because in his head, I was still the doormat who'd always fix things in the end. Second, I reconnected with someone he hated. Luca, tall, kind, soft-spoken, former coworker turned small business owner. The man my fiancé called boring and too into himself after we bumped into him at a bar once. What he didn't know? Luca had asked me out before I met my fiancé. I'd said no because I was already dating, like a loyal idiot. But this time, when I reached out to catch up, Luca said yes instantly. I wasn't cheating, I was just adjusting the guest list. Meanwhile, my fiancé was busy rehearsing his groom speech, literally, in the mirror. "We've had ups and downs, but she's always been there for me," said with the confidence of a man who still thought he had me wrapped around his ring finger. He had no idea I was redoing the seating chart behind his back, replacing one name, just one. He wouldn't notice until it was too late. 1 week before the wedding, I let him think everything was perfect. I told him how excited I was. I laughed at his dad's dry jokes at the rehearsal dinner. I nodded along when his mom showed me old baby photos of him like he was the prize of the century. But the night before the wedding, I made one last change. I moved Luca to the first row, right next to my parents. My fiancé didn't even look at the updated layout I sent him. He was too busy making Instagram reels about groom life and tagging me in posts with captions like, "Can't wait to marry this one, even if she's crazy sometimes." Crazy? He hadn't seen anything yet. And then the wedding day came. I woke up early on the wedding day, not because I was nervous, not because I was excited, but because I knew exactly what I was about to do. No tears, no second thoughts, just clarity. I let the makeup artist do her thing, smiling sweetly while she talked about the big day and how lucky I was. I let my bridesmaids fuss over my dress. I posed for photos. I even sent him a text that said, "Can't wait to see you at the altar." He replied with, "You're already the best decision I've ever made." Which was funny, considering just 2 weeks earlier, he told me I'd do for now. I arrived at the venue looking like the woman he never deserved. Hair perfect, eyes sharp, that fitted ivory gown hugging me in all the ways that used to shut him up mid-sentence. The same dress he once said looked a little plain because I didn't pick the one with the plunging neckline. He wanted sexy. He got savage. Everyone rose when I walked down the aisle, except him. He looked stunned. Frozen. Because he had just noticed who was sitting in the front row, 3 seats from the altar, smiling politely, suit tailored, hands clasped over one knee. Luca. The man he always called a nobody. The man he mocked in front of me. The man now sitting next to my father, in his seat. He glanced over at me, panic starting to surface behind his fake smile. I kept walking. I stopped at the altar, looked him in the eye, and said loud enough for the first 3 rows to hear, "Before we do this, I have something to say." He blinked, smiled nervously at the crowd, chuckled like I was being quirky. Okay? I took a breath, turned toward the guests, scanned the room, then looked back at him. This man once told me he'd marry me if nothing better came along. Gasps. Actual audible gasps from the crowd. His face dropped. He said I was fine, that I'd do, that he might as well commit since we were already here. A few people shifted uncomfortably. His mom looked horrified. One of his groomsmen muttered, "Dude," under his breath. I was going to let it slide, pretend it didn't matter. But then I realized something. He didn't want a partner. He wanted a placeholder. I turned to him. "So here's what's going to happen." He whispered, "Babe, don't. You're going to step aside. Because today I choose something better, myself." Then I stepped back from the altar, walked down the aisle, past the stunned guests, past the planners frozen mid-movement, past his mother clutching her pearls, past the cake we had taste-tested for 3 hours, and stopped in front of Luca. He stood up without a word, offered me his arm, and together we walked out. The room stayed dead silent behind us, until the door shut. Then I exhaled for the first time in 3 years. He didn't follow, of course not, because men like that don't chase women. They wait for them to come back, convinced they'll never find better. But this time, he was the one left standing there, watching someone better walk in and walk me out, and he'll never forget it. The best part? I didn't even look back. Not once. Because I wanted the last image he had of me to be that. Me walking away with someone stronger, kinder, and far more of a man than he could ever hope to be. And even more than that, I wanted everyone else to see it too. We stepped out into the sunlight like we were escaping a crime scene. Because honestly, we were. 3 years of manipulation, emotional breadcrumbing, backhanded compliments, and lukewarm affection dressed up as commitment. Done. In a single walk down the aisle. Luca didn't say anything at first. He just looked over at me and said, "I can't believe you actually did that." I smiled. "Believe it. You don't know how long I've been preparing." He shook his head. "I do now." And then, right there in the parking lot, with my dress still flowing behind me like a freaking cape, he took my hand. No kiss, no grand romantic gesture, just presence, stillness, respect. And that was everything my ex never gave me. I turned my phone off for the rest of the day, but not before I posted one photo to my Instagram story. Just me, standing next to Luca outside the venue, bouquet still in hand, the headline bold above it, "Better did come along." It spread like wildfire. By the time I turned my phone back on 2 days later, I had 53 missed calls, over 100 texts, and a flood of DMs, from friends, from people who'd been there, from complete strangers who said watching someone not go through with a bad wedding felt like breathing for the first time. Even my florist messaged me, "That was iconic. Never forget who you are." But the real moment? That came a week later. My ex showed up at my apartment building. No call, no warning, just him, standing there with dark circles under his eyes and a grocery store bouquet that still had the $12 sticker on it. He looked like a man who had just realized he was the one left behind. I didn't open the door. I watched from the peephole as he stood there for 10 minutes, texting me things like, "I was just stressed. You embarrassed me in front of everyone. We could have worked it out. You'll never find someone who knows you like I do." And then finally, "You'll regret this." I didn't. I never will. Because the only thing I regretted was wasting years trying to convince someone that I was enough, when the truth was I was always too much for a man like him to handle. The next day, he was blocked. On everything. No messages, no voicemails, just silence. And in that silence, I built something new. I moved into a new apartment, one with more light and no memories. I went back to school, picked up my career where I left off, and started living my life for myself. Not to prove my worth to anyone, not to be someone's fallback plan, but because I finally remembered who I was before he tried to rewrite my value in conditional terms. If nothing better comes along. That phrase used to haunt me. Now it makes me laugh, because better did come along, and it was me. 2 weeks after the wedding that wasn't, I get a message request on Facebook from his aunt. His aunt. This woman, who once asked me if I planned to lose a little weight before the big day while shoving her 5th crab puff into her mouth, is suddenly trying to mediate. Her message? "Sweetie, I think you overreacted. Weddings are stressful. All men have doubts. Maybe give him a second chance?" I sat there staring at it, sipping my oat milk latte in my new apartment with my new plants and my no regrets. And I did what any normal woman would do in this situation. I replied with a screenshot of her nephew saying, "You'll do if nothing better comes along," followed by a photo of me and Luca eating brunch on a rooftop, looking unbothered, moisturized, and wealthy in serotonin. She left me on red. But it didn't stop there. The man himself? He started spiral texting. You know the kind. Starts at hey, quickly shifts to please, escalates to you ruined my life, and lands at you'll die alone and I'll be laughing. He really ran the full emotional Olympics in a single afternoon. At one point he even texted, you threw away our whole relationship for a moment. A moment? Sir, you threw away our relationship when you treated me like a used coupon with a best if nothing else available sticker. He tried to guilt me by posting a black and white selfie captioned, when you love too hard and they leave anyway. Bro, you loved me like someone testing the furniture at IKEA, sitting on it, poking at it, but never taking it home. Then came the grand gesture. Because of course, he showed up to my work with flowers. Carnations. If you don't know what that means, let me explain. Carnations are the gas station sushi of apology flowers. They say, I did something wrong, but not wrong enough to spend more than $9.99 at CVS. My coworkers gathered like they were watching a wildlife documentary. Phones out, eyes wide, one whispered, is that the wedding guy? I stepped outside. He started talking fast, like a guy trying to return a blender without a receipt. I was under pressure. You know how my mom is. I didn't mean what I said. I was just stressed. You took it the wrong way. You're so sensitive. There it was, the greatest hits, gaslight, deflect, blame her, repeat. I let him finish. Then I said, you ever seen a woman walk away from her own wedding and not even smudge her eyeliner? He blinked. I smiled. Keep that image. You'll need it for your healing journey. Then I turned around and walked back inside, like the closing scene of a Netflix series where the ex doesn't even get a redemption arc. That was the last time I ever saw him. He unfollowed me a week later. Not that it mattered. He couldn't block my glow up. Because I was busy living. Like obnoxiously living. I got a dog, named him Upgrade, took him on walks past my ex's favorite bar, posted pics like, me and Upgrade taking better walks than the ones I took on eggshells for 3 years. My group chat renamed themselves the bridal party that escaped. And Luca? Let's just say the man knew how to show up. He sent me flowers on the day the wedding would have happened. Not carnations, not a bouquet, a tree, a whole damn lemon tree. With a note that said, because you turned the sourest moment of your life into something that grew. And that's when I knew. I never needed a man who might choose me. I needed a man who knew I was already the choice. And even more than that, I needed to choose myself first, every single time, especially before some grown man with the emotional maturity of a damp tortilla tries to maybe wife me up if his Bumble matches fall through. Not today, not ever again. It only got more ridiculous from there. A month later, a full month, mind you, I'm at Target buying toilet paper and overpriced candles like a functioning adult when I hear someone behind me go, didn't expect to see you here. I turn around, it's him. And what's in his cart? Frozen pizza, 3-in-1 shampoo, a single cucumber, and the saddest little bottle of cologne I've ever seen in my life. The kind that smells like teenage disappointment and broken promises. I blinked at him like he was a ghost from a bad dream. He gave me this little smirk like he thought we were about to have a moment. Still got that fiery attitude? He asked. I said, I still think I'm a warm-up? He laughed awkwardly. Come on, that got blown way out of proportion. I pointed at his cart. You seem to like proportion now. You shopping for dinner or just disappointment? He had no comeback, so I walked away. Left him standing there next to the self-checkout kiosk, like a glitch in my past I'd already deleted. He didn't even chase me, just stood there, looking like the human embodiment of a return to sender stamp. When I told Luca about it later, he asked if I wanted to accidentally Venmo him $1 with a lemon emoji. I did it before he finished the sentence, but here's the kicker. 2 weeks after the Target encounter, I get a manila envelope in the mail. No return address, no note. Inside, a wedding invite. Yup. My ex-fiancé, Mr. You'll do if nothing better comes along, got engaged to someone else. Less than 2 months after our non-wedding. And he invited me. The level of delusion? Olympic. But you know what the best part was? The venue. The exact same one we'd booked. Same garden, same banquet hall, same ugly beige chairs he swore he hated. I laughed so hard I nearly pulled a muscle. He didn't just replace me, he tried to reboot the entire event. Like I was a failed draft and he just hit copy and paste on a new woman. He even reused our wedding hashtag. Better Together 2024, I posted a story that night with a new hashtag, Best Alone, since 2023. Luca added, upgraded forever and tagged me. We had wine, we celebrated, we lived. And on the day of his wedding, I threw a non-wedding brunch with my girls, wore the dress I would have worn down the aisle and toasted to what I avoided. A man who saw me as a placeholder, a life I would have spent explaining my worth, a future built on if no one better comes along. And let me tell you, there's no glow like the one you earn by walking away from the wrong man in the right dress. Because at the end of the day, he said I was just a warm-up, but I was the reason he'll never get to the main event, ever. After the brunch, we went straight to the spa, because if you're going to celebrate skipping a marriage to a walking red flag, you do it with champagne, steam rooms, and zero reminders of beige banquet chairs and Costco tuxedos. Halfway through my massage, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. It was a picture. Blurry, taken from what looked like the corner of a reception hall. The message said, "Guess who's crying in the groom suite?" I knew immediately. Of course it was him. Of course he was crying on his wedding day, because deep down, even beneath all that smugness, all that passive-aggressive confidence, he knew he'd messed up. He knew he didn't trade up. He knew I was the best thing that ever happened to him. And I left him holding his own regret like a bouquet made entirely of what-ifs. Apparently, right after their vows, his new bride made a toast that included the words, "I didn't think this day would come so fast." And that was when his face changed, because he knew exactly what that meant. She settled too. He wasn't her first choice, just the one who was there, the placeholder, the warm-up. A guy who thought he was getting a second chance at the life he threw away, but all he got was the same seat he'd assigned to me. He replaced me in the wedding, but he couldn't replace the woman who refused to be an option. Not really, not where it mattered. That night, while he was slow dancing to a song we picked together 2 years ago, I was in a rooftop bar with my people, wearing the shoes I didn't get to wear at the wedding, sipping a drink named the Runaway Bride, and laughing so hard my face hurt. Luca sat beside me, hand on my thigh, whispering, "This is way better than overpriced chicken and forced family photos." He wasn't wrong. My phone buzzed again. Another unknown number, another photo. This time, it was a screenshot of a post from one of his groomsmen, captioned, "When you realize the one that got away took the glow with her." The comments were brutal. One girl wrote, "That's what happens when you treat wifey like a placeholder." Another, "The new bride looks like she knows. Yikes." And there it was. Validation. Not from spite, not from revenge, from truth. Because when you give your heart to someone who sees you as temporary, they don't just lose you, they lose the version of themselves that had potential. He chose the easy path. I chose myself. And now I wake up in peace. No gut check texts. No wondering if I'm enough. No sidelong glances at his phone when he smiles too hard at his notification. I don't live in fear that one day he'll leave. He already did. And it was the best thing he ever did for me. Because his biggest mistake was assuming I'd wait around. That I'd hang on just long enough for him to make up his mind. But I'm not a safety net. I'm not a maybe. I'm not an if nothing better comes along. I am the better. I was the better. And now, he just gets to live with that. Every single day. I didn't need to crash his wedding. I didn't need to show up in a dramatic red dress and expose him at the altar. I didn't need to send messages or ruin his honeymoon or make a scene at his job. Because he did it to himself. He exposed himself when he thought I was something to settle for. He ruined his own story when he gambled with someone who would have given him everything and treated her like a placeholder. He turned his happily ever after into a joke the moment he looked at a woman he was supposed to love and said, "You'll do." And now, he's married to someone who watched him mourn his ex-fiancé at their reception. He's building a life with someone who will always know she was Plan B. He wakes up every morning next to a wife who knows he once said the quiet part out loud. Meanwhile, I'm over here, choosing myself every day, living loudly, laughing often, in love with my peace, my growth, my glow up, and maybe even Luca. But more than anything, in love with the fact that I walked away from a man who said I'd do and made damn sure he never does better.